Hey YouTube, today I'm going to talk about some fuel saving techniques and I'm going to demonstrate their effectiveness by driving the same course twice, once driving normally and then again driving using the fuel saving techniques that we talk about. So I'm just going to start a stopwatch and reset the trip meter so we can demonstrate that these techniques will save you fuel and not cost you time. So we'll set off now and I'm just going to drive normally. I won't be too aggressive, but I won't be actively trying to save fuel either. So I've just warmed up the engine and gone to a starting spot so that we can replicate the same journey under similar conditions and see what sort of savings we can make. I'm so used to driving using a technique called pulse and glide that I'm doing it unconsciously. So the first big thing you need to think about when you're trying to drive economically is that you need to maintain momentum. So what that means is that you want to use the brakes as little as possible, because when you're braking you're just wasting energy. You've built up all this momentum to travel in a straight line, and then when you brake you're losing it all and it's all going just into heat energy that's completely wasted and useless. So instead of braking, what you should be doing is looking further ahead and looking to see if there is something that you might need to slow down for. And if there is, don't brake, just let off the throttle earlier and coast down to the speed that you need to be, whether that's stopped or just slowing for a roundabout. In this case I'm not doing that, I'm just driving up towards a roundabout and applying the brakes to slow down. If I was trying to drive economically, I would have seen that there was a roundabout coming up and slowed down much more gradually. So then I'd be utilizing the energy that I'd used to accelerate up to the speed limit instead of just wasting it by slowing down so quickly. So most fuel saving techniques build off that knowledge that you need to maintain momentum. You need to get up to the speed limit as efficiently as possible, and then you need to lose that momentum as slowly as possible. So instead of losing all that momentum in a couple of seconds by braking for a red light like I'm going to do here, see there's a red light but I still have my throttle on because we want to keep going at the speed limit, right? But now I have to apply the brakes and all of that momentum is just wasted. speed limit or above the speed limit at all times, and that it will make a massive difference to how quickly they get from A to B. But if you do the math, it really doesn't get you there much quicker. If I slow down more gradually, that's only going to cost me a couple of seconds. Whereas if I slow down quickly, I might gain a couple of seconds, but I've just wasted all of the fuel that I spent to get up to speed. People don't pay attention to where their car is using the most fuel. They just sit on the back bumper of the car in front. They don't think about how hard they're working the engine, how efficiently they're driving. So there are a lot of easy changes that you can make that'll save you 20% in your fuel bill. And we'll see at the end of this trip just how much fuel we can save. One of the big places where you can use momentum to save a lot of fuel is when you've got up and downhill areas. Most people will just sit at the speed limit, for example 60 k's an hour, and to do that they'll need to mash the throttle to maintain 60 kilometers per hour while going uphill, and then they'll just stay in gear while they go downhill, still touching the throttle. I mean, right now I'm on the throttle only a little, but I need to do that to maintain 60 k's an hour. In reality, what I should have done approaching a hill is start to accelerate a little, perhaps go slightly over the speed limit so that I can get as much momentum as possible going up the hill, and lift off the throttle slightly as I go up the hill and let my speed fall a little. Maybe I'll let it fall down to 55 or 50 kilometers per hour. And in doing so, I'm burning much less fuel. But I've let my momentum carry me up the hill. And once I'm at the top of the hill, I can then shift into neutral and let gravity give me that acceleration back down the hill. And that acceleration is effectively free. People like that don't help my case with fuel. Okay. So if I go down a hill in neutral, I'll accelerate from 50 kilometers per hour up to the speed limit, and maybe even more if you feel like being a little bit naughty. And you get all this momentum down the hill for free, which you can then carry along the flat for quite a while. So that can save you a lot of fuel as well. That same technique of accelerating until your desired speed and then shifting into neutral can be used on the flat as well. It's called pulse and glide. And the theory is that if you're ticking along in fourth gear at 60 kilometers per hour, your engine is in a very inefficient part of its power band, and you're using quite a lot of fuel to do not very much work. The theory with pulse and glide is that it's more efficient to accelerate quite briskly to 60 kilometers per hour and then shift into neutral once you get there, and then glide down to say 50 or 55 kilometers per hour, and then again accelerate briskly up to 60 kilometers per hour and glide down to a slower speed. The theory is that it's more efficient to do that than to just sit at 60 kilometers per hour in gear with the engine not using an efficient part of its power band. So we'll demonstrate that technique in the next part of this video. The other thing which you can do to save fuel, which is a surprisingly effective technique, is to just slow down a little bit. The freeway speed limits in Australia are 110, which by international standards isn't very fast. But once you get over about 100 k's an hour, the aerodynamic drag on your car is quite significant, and it can actually cost you a lot more fuel to go at 110 than it does to go at 100. I've heard figures from between 10 and 15% better fuel economy for knocking 10 kilometers per hour off your highway speed limit. The interesting thing about that technique is that it doesn't actually cost you that much time in your journey. If you travel 100 kilometers at 100 kilometers per hour, it obviously takes you about an hour. But if you travel at 110 kilometers per hour for 100 kilometers, it still takes you about 55 minutes. So you're only going to save 5 minutes on a 100 kilometer journey by traveling 110 kilometers per hour. But fuel saving can be quite significant, as said, between 10 and 15%. So, in my opinion, it is definitely worth knocking a few kilometers off your speed when you're traveling on the freeway, instead of sitting in the fast lane trying to overtake everybody. 4 pillars of economic driving. Maintain your momentum. Use gravity to your advantage to build momentum, or to lose it as efficiently as possible by using your momentum to get you over the top of hills. And using pulse and glide technique to use a more efficient part of your engine's power band, and then slowing down to reduce aerodynamic drag. We'll finish up our little circuit shortly, and we'll record our fuel economy and our time taken for the trip. So, if all goes to plan, we'll be demonstrating how effective these techniques can be. Another technique which you could employ at a time like this is to actually turn your engine off when you're sitting at a red light. There's not much point having your engine ticking over when you're not moving anywhere, so that can also save quite a bit of fuel. You might have noticed in this trip that I'm not running any air conditioning. That's also another technique which can save you quite a bit of fuel. I've decided not to run air conditioning for both portions of this video, just so we can make the comparison purely about driving technique as opposed to switching off accessories and stuff like that. Okay, so our baseline run took 18 minutes and 39 seconds. This is going to be a long piece of video. Our fuel economy has been 7.1 litres per 100 kilometres, and our average speed was 41 kilometres per hour. So, we restart our stopwatch, reset our trip computer, and leave for take 2. So, first thing you'll notice now is that I'll be doing a lot of shifting into neutral. That's the big part where a lot of hands-on driving and management of your transmission can make a big difference to your fuel economy. So you'll notice even in situations like that, I'll just shift into neutral while going around the roundabout, and in this case down the hill, and I'm effectively using very little fuel to maintain my speed. Let's accelerate towards the back of this car, let's drop into neutral and sit behind him. We push ourselves up the hill, shift into neutral near the top, lose a little bit of speed over the top, but on the way down, gain it all back. I can see there's a red light up there, so I'll just shift it into gear and slow down gradually. Come to the stop, let's switch the engine off. With modern fuel-injected cars, many of them don't use any fuel at all when you're going downhill and in gear. They can sense the load going through the engine and transmission and know to cut off fuel when it's unnecessary. So in a situation like this where I was going downhill and slowing down, it's actually more fuel efficient for me to leave the car in gear than in neutral. The light goes green, we turn the car on, accelerate up to speed, and then shift into neutral to let the hill carry us down. As you can see, we'll be in neutral now all the way to the roundabout, able to maintain our momentum. Very, very cheap. You can see everyone else here has been slowing down. I haven't used any fuel really, and I've been able to catch up to the traffic ahead. In this case, you can see I just accelerated very gently, and I was able to move forward and stop-start traffic without using a hell of a lot of fuel or a hell of a lot of my brakes. This is a little bit of a problem for our test. School zones have just started, so we're going to have to travel a little bit slowly through some of these areas. Speed limit's 40 instead of 60. Hopefully that doesn't throw our numbers too much. As you can see, I'm just doing little bursts of acceleration here to maintain my speed. Cars ahead seem to be stopped, so I'll just cruise in neutral, and actually I'll start to decelerate in gear. One of the things that you'll notice when you start to look ahead and see obstacles early and respond to them early, you'll notice that people will take advantage of that and, you know, change lanes and drive in front of you. Whereas if you had maintained 70 kilometers per hour and slammed on your brakes as soon as you got to the car in front, they wouldn't have been able to get in front of you. Just try not to get too frustrated with people doing that. It's not going to cost you much time, and you're saving fuel. You know that a a couple of cars getting ahead of you is only going to add a minute or two to your trip. It's not worth getting frustrated about. Traffic on this run seems to be a lot heavier and slower than the last run. So. It's not good. I was hoping to prove that there wouldn't be much of a difference in time when driving economically compared to driving normally. Hopefully it works out to be not too different anyway. We're into another school zone here, so again this will be costing us some time. Traffic seems to be banked up ahead, so I'm in no rush to sit on people's bumpers and stuff like that. Looks like we're going to have to slow down anyway. And now we've got a red light, so we'll just shift into third and let the car slow down gradually. It's actually getting very hot, so I'm going to open a window and hope it doesn't cost us too much in terms of fuel economy. Actually, we should be shifting the engine off here. That hasn't worked very well for me because the light's just gone green. was a bit of poor timing. lot of people slow down the corners way more than it's necessary. I don't know if that's a confidence thing, but I feel comfortable to take the corner a little bit more quickly, then it can save you fuel because you're not having to wipe out your momentum before you get to the corner and rebuild it after you exit the corner. Well, I probably shouldn't be telling people to go around corners as fast as they can. It's not very responsible. Again, we have a school zone here, so we'll go a bit slowly. In keeping with the techniques that I'm demonstrating though, you'll notice that I haven't applied the brake pedal to lose my momentum from 50 down to 40. I've just kept the car in neutral and let my speed slowly whittle away due to the friction. This should be quite a short red light, so I'm not going to turn the engine off. Although, maybe that was a mistake. Yeah, I've been sitting here too long. I probably should have turned the engine off. Okay. Should be green any moment now. It is. So I'll usually accelerate quite briskly when we stop. Using between, I'd say, 50 and 75% throttle. You want the engine to be working reasonably hard so that you're using a sufficient amount of the available power. But I don't actually have any data that suggests whether it's better to accelerate at 50% or 75% or 100%. stop sign, or the red light rather. Switch off our engine. And wait. So, part B took 21 minutes. Our fuel economy was 5.9 and our average speed was 37 kilometers per hour. So, in comparison with our first run, the trip took 2 minutes and 20 seconds longer. Fuel economy improved from 7.1 to 5.9, and our average speed only dropped by 4 kilometers per hour. So if I can just grab my calculator, that means that our trip divided by 1119 equals our trip took 13% longer, which is quite significant actually. But we used 17% less fuel. So there you go. The math says you will save 17% on your fuel bill just by changing your driving techniques. So change your driving techniques.